A Seat at the Table, sponsored in part by Blacktop Paving. Contact them for all your paving needs.
Hello, my name is Tavon from Blacktop Paving. We're a Halifax-based paving contractor that provides complete commercial and residential paving services for asphalt and concrete, replacement and repair through all of HRM.
For all your paving needs, you want the best. So call Blacktop Asphalt Paving Limited today at 902-402-5950 or send an email to info@blacktopasphaltpaving.ca.
Well, good day and hello from wherever you are tuning in today from. I'm your host, Nicole Johnson, here at the Seat at the Table, and you're listening to CIOE FM 97.5, your community radio station. Today, my special guest is none other than a fabulous woman. Her name, and I'm so excited for her to be here today, I'm almost jumping out of my seat, it's the Honorable Dr. Mayann Francis, our very own. Now, she grew up in Whitney Pier, and I'm reading her history, and I've known her myself, but there's so much impact in this woman today, and we're going to get into some good stuff. But I don't know if many of you know this who are from Halifax or even from, the country, but she is the 31st Black Lieutenant Governor from Cape Breton, and now she was the Queen's representative. So there's a whole lot in there that I want to get in and ask her, because why politics? And, that might have been a scary thing back in her day growing up there. So all what led into it. But today she's on the show. So welcome, Dr. Francis.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here with you.
So I'm going to jump right into it because I have a lot of questions here and our segment's only short. So my first question, tell us a little bit about your childhood, your background. Because I know when I've heard you speak so dearly of your parents and the time that you traveled and your childhood memories. Share a little bit about that.
Well, thank you. It's very interesting. I seem to have to answer that question all the time, which I don't mind answering it. And when I wrote my memoir, I made sure it's clear in my memoir. But being the first African Nova Scotian to be Lieutenant Governor is indeed quite an honor and quite a privilege. And I always tell people I'm the first African Nova Scotian in Nova Scotia to become Lieutenant Governor. And in all of Canada, I'm the second Black person to become Lieutenant Governor. The first one was Lincoln Alexander, the late Lincoln. But in any event, I was born in Whitney Pier, Cape Breton, Sydney, Cape Breton, and my parents were immigrants to Cape Breton. My mom was originally from Barbados, but she went via the United States, which is New York. And my dad was Cuban, and he also was via the United States, which was New York, where they both met. And then they ended up in Cape Breton because my dad was the clergy of the African Orthodox Church, and they've had different clergies there, but when they're living in New York, he wanted to move out of New York. Why, we don't know, but he would prefer to be there. But in any event, I don't have the full story of how they met because my dad's first wife died. And then he and my mother got together. In any event, living in Cape Breton has been very, very exciting, especially in Whitney Pier, because Whitney Pier, as I've always explained to people, was a place that had the word multicultural long before that word ever came in place, right? Yeah. Because you had people from all over the world living there. We were all immigrants, and we're talking about people from the Ukraine, people from Poland, people from France, people from England, Ireland, Lebanon, everywhere, Jewish people. We were just all different. And we all were, I would say we were poor, but nobody ever thought of themselves as that because, many of them came to work in the steel plant, or some of them even had their own business, especially regardless of who they were. And people even in the Caribbean aspect some of had their own business as well. So it was just a place that I just assumed this is the way the world was, that when I leave Cape Breton, Sydney, that this is how it's going to be. There will be a lot of people that are from different parts of the world and we'll all get along. Wow, that was a big mistake. I'm not saying that in Whitney Pier we were perfect. I'm not saying that. Right. But the bottom line is that the foundation was there.
Right on.
And, and my father was heavily involved with the various churches that were there because there was synagogue, there was Anglican church, which used to discriminate against black people long time. That's how the African Orthodox Church got into play, which is another long story. But there's United. There was all sorts of churches there, and my father was involved with all of the clergy, which was very interesting. That was him. And also he was involved with political people, too. They always came and chatted with him. He was involved with police officers. He was just one of those people that was involved with a lot of people. Being the clergy, that's what it was. So,
right on.
But anyway, that's the brief history of my background growing up in Whitney Pier.
What about your education?
Pardon me?
What about your education?
My education, my elementary school, of course, was there.
Right.
My junior high school was also there. High school was there. And I always say in my book, that I failed in grade 7, and I just think it's important for people to know that. And I just never thought that I would ever fail. And it was a state of shock because I'm somebody who just always worked hard, studied hard, and the family was in shock as well because we don't know. And I don't remember the details of it, but just remember if you don't fail today, right? If you're one grade, not grade, but a point less, you still go to the next. So we don't really know.
Right.
But what happened to me is what I tell people. I said, you know what? But that really made me say, that's never going to happen again. And it didn't. And my father, I was afraid to tell my parents because they were they were shocked, but they were so warm towards me. My dad said, I'm going to look into this. And he did, but of course they had no answers for him. In any event, he said, well, she's not going back to that school again. She's going over to Don Bosco School, which was a Catholic school right in Whitney Pier, because I was at Whitney School. And in any event, when I finished grade 9 there, from grade 7, 8, 9, I was in the top 5. So that just goes to show you why did she fail, right?
Right.
But in any event, I looked at that as God's way of saying, I got an answer for you. And this is a lesson. Learn from a mistake or whatever it was, because we still don't know. And when I reflect about it, I said, it's too bad I didn't save everything and see, well, what was the grade?
Right.
What did I fail in, right? But in any event, and this is what I tell young people now, that if you do fail, don't look at it as if, you can never go further. Yes, you can.
You can.
And I'm proof of that.
You sure
so there's
are.
no question about that, right? And at first I never would say that I ever failed because I was just so embarrassed by it. But I had a conversation with God and I said, that's it. That's never going to happen again.
And kudos to your dad because he dug into it enough to kind of
he
find
did.
out.
There's no question about that.
Yes.
So whatever answers he received, I don't think was anything, but he might have, but he certainly did not tell me.
Right.
But they were just very good to me and made sure that I went to a different school, which is what happened. Yeah.
Now, didn't you study abroad at some point as well? Was that further on in your adult life or teenage life?
Well, later in life, when I left Whitney, when I finished Whitney Pier, I went off and I studied to be an X-ray technologist here in Halifax here. And then after that, after working as a technologist and then deciding I wanted to get my Bachelor of Arts degree, so I ended up going to St. Mary's University. The degree was just in my head. I just had to go to university, which was very nerve-wracking and frightening because here I was going off to get a Bachelor of Arts degree at a university, and I was scared, I was nervous, and anyway, I did well there, finished that in 3.5 years. I worked very hard. I made sure I did summer school and everything else, and and then
not everybody's going to volunteer for summer school, but that's good. That's good.
It's determination to finish, right?
That's right.
And then, of course, I ended up getting married because I met somebody at university.
Okay.
Our marriage did not last. However, he was American, so we moved off to the United States. And unfortunately, as I said, the marriage did not work well. And my determination was that, okay, we went off to Philadelphia, and I said, okay, since our marriage is breaking down, then what I'm going to do is go over to New York where I have all my relatives. And I said, I will only stay there 6 months. Well, 16 years.
Oh, really?
16 years I stayed in the United States. And it was during that time that I did my my master's degree in public administration at New York University.
Good for you. I did not know that about you. I did not know that.
I had a wonderful experience in New York. We used to go to New York every second summer when we were children.
Right, when you traveled.
Because, and that again is in my memoir. And then when I wrote the children's book, it's Mayann's Train Ride.
Yeah.
And that's where we used to go every second summer because that's where my dad's family were.
Was.
Yeah.
Yes. Those are good, fond memories to have.
Yeah,
so let me jump to this question, and we may have to get into this in the next segment. Why politics? What interests you in getting into politics? Well, sorry, it's not even politics, right? You wouldn't classify it as politics. No. So it's more of the Queen's representative, right? Mm-hmm. And so what triggered you to have an ounce of interest in that? Because I know that couldn't have been a hard decision to make or even pursue.
Well, it's interesting because a friend of mine always says it was meant for you to be the lieutenant governor. This is what her belief is. And because she remembers me and talks about me when I was a kid, and I said, I didn't used to do that. And she said, indeed you did. So she said, when I heard you became lieutenant governor, she said, I was not surprised. I said, yeah, there you go. My parents were very staunch, very devoted and dedicated to the monarchy. My middle name is Elizabeth. My sister's middle name is Victoria, so that speaks volumes right there.
Destiny.
And when Her Majesty visited Cape Breton, Sydney, her and her husband, Prince Philip, and that was before she was queen. My parents were invited to meet her. Oh. So they spent time at the hotel there, where they had her and so forth. And I remember standing on the street in school with the schoolins, and the car was going by. I guess I assumed they were just coming from the airport, the Queen and her and the late Prince Philip. And I always remember where we were standing. It was just a few of us, and he must have touched her, and then she looked over and she waved because she was looking at the other side. It was right and left. And I'll always remember that, and I remember smiling and saying, oh, she's waving to me, but she wasn't. She was waving to all of us. But anyway, I was standing there and feel that wave is for me.
Right.
I always had respect for the monarchists, and I still do. And it's interesting. In my book, I talk about when people say, "Are you ever going to be coming back to Nova Scotia?" And I said, if I come back to Nova Scotia, I have to come back as lieutenant governor, or I come back as deputy minister of the government. That's it. And I used to say that, right. And then all of a sudden. It's true.
It happens. So that's anyway, right. Dreams do come true.
It's God's call.
That's right.
God's call.
That's right. So thank you for sharing that, and we're gonna touch more on that. We're gonna take a quick little commercial break. So sit back, relax, get your tea, your coffee, and hot cocoa, and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Martin Hickey, host of Fresh from the East Coast, Thursdays at 7 on CIOE 97.5 FM. I'm seeking your support of our spring online 50/50 lottery in support of local radio. Tickets are available now and can be purchased at the studios of CIOE 97.5 FM at 11 Glendale Avenue, Lower Sackville, online at communityradio.ca or by calling 902-252-7975. Ticket sales will continue until May 14th. Support the voice of East Coast music, CIOE 97.5 FM. Listen local, support local, and a chance to win 50% of the jackpot.
And we're back. Thank you for listening. We're going to continue right on. This is our second segment with Mrs. Honorable Dr. Mayann Francis. And every time I hear her talk, I learn something new. So let's jump back in there. I kind of want to get into your personal hobbies and the things that are, your aspirations. Like, what do you enjoy doing?
Well, it's been a very active life for me, very active, and I'm very grateful to God for that. So yes. I always look at that as my top priority is my faith in God and my conversations with God. especially when I'm so busy. I always sit down and say, God, what are you up to? I'm tired, or something like that. He doesn't
Well,
listen
you gotta
to me.
ask.
But I do ask, and then I sit down and have my conversation with him and my prayers and my meditation. So that I look at that as a top priority in my life. I'm also very interested in writing, and but to write, you cannot be as busy as I am, and that's part of my challenge right now, because I would really like to spend some time just writing again.
Yeah.
Probably writing. I'm interested in trying to write poetry, so that's what I would like to do. But anyway, whether that's going to happen now or before I leave this earth, I don't know. But wrote my children's book and my memoir. Then another children's book is coming out this year as well. So it's been very exciting. I've always enjoyed reading, but I don't have the time to sit down and clearly read right now, which is what I like to do. I like listening to many people nowadays of the next generation. I just find that very, very interesting to talk with them, to chat with them, be some of their mentors. I think it's important because that's when I leave, I know that they'll be here, and I just want them to be able to carry out what they want to do and just be pleased with themselves, to love themselves, and to want to be reaching out to people from various communities, especially our community.
Yes.
That's going to be all positive for them. So those things are interesting. What I also have, I don't know if you want to call that a hobby or what I like cats, all right? So
I remember the big fluffy cat.
Yeah, my darling Angel, who passed away unexpectedly and just devastated me. But, I do like cats, have a cat now, and he's very interesting. And so anyway, that's very important to me as well. And so those things are really great. And I love looking at different hairstyles. Anybody sees me, they say, "Oh, she looks different." Yes, I might have a hairstyle.
But that's what we do.
Exactly. That's our privilege of being black, right? We can change our style from
Switch
today to tomorrow.
That's
look
right.
different today, look different tomorrow, and so that's something I consider like a nice hobby for me too. I enjoy it very much.
Fashion,
I
is what
love
we
it.
make it, right? It's
Absolutely.
a personal reflection of who we are.
Absolutely. And remember, you made me a lovely dress.
I
I'll
did,
always
and I'm in the
remember that.
making of making another one for you.
Well, you shouldn't have told me that. It's public now because I got to make sure I get that dress. But I'll always remember that because it was at a function that I was at when you came up to me and introduced yourself to me and said, "I'd like to make a dress for you." And I'm looking at you, well, who are you? But you made it, and the dress is beautiful. I still wear it. It's absolutely lovely. So
Thank you.
I thank you very much for it because I look so lovely in it.
You do. And I still have those pictures, by the way.
Oh, you do?
I do. And I think it was at the NSCC. Was it a meet and greet?
I wore it there.
Right.
I wore it there, but you approached me long before that, but I did wear it there, and you were invited to that, and I made sure everybody knew, well, guess who made this lovely
Well, thank you. I
dress?
appreciate that so much. I like I said, I will get that dress to you because I have that in mind for you. Question. How has your faith and your family kept you grounded, and prepared you for the challenges and successes in your life? Because I know those are key things.
Right. Well, growing up, we grew up, I like to say I grew up basically in the church. My dad was the African Orthodox clergy, which that church came from Episcopalian Church out of the United States. And that's a whole different story as to why it became a separate church from Episcopalian, is because the founder of the African Orthodox Church was studying to be a priest, and he experienced racism and discrimination. Then he just pulled out and decided that I'm going to have to do another church. But anyway, there's a major history about that, which that's not where I'm expertise in there. But in any event, having the church as a center point for many people within the Caribbean community, growing up in Whitney Pier, I went to church 3 times a day on Sunday. Okay, morning service, Sunday school, evening service. There was no pulling back from that. And remember, you probably don't remember this, but Sunday was always a very special day.
Yes.
There weren't any stores open. It was like, certain radio stations only had certain type of music on because it was religious. But in any event, on Sunday was a special day for all of us. Church service in the morning. And our families were very strict on how we would behave in the church service. So you had to dress.
I do remember those.
Yes, you had to dress a certain way.
Yes.
You sat down. You had to be quiet. The choir was absolutely wonderful, and my father was very, very strict when it came to the church service, and everything was very strict. Would I agree with him today? I'm not so sure, but anyway, he was extremely strict. And at Sunday school, like, we would come home from church service in the morning, eat our lunch, and it was big lunch, like it was peas and rice and chicken and vegetables, and it was always very special. And we always sat at the table together. It was a family meal, and then you prepared yourself and got out to Sunday school. And then after you came home from Sunday school, then it was evening service at 7:00. So I mean, that's the way it was all day.
Right.
And I always had a special love of God and Christ, and it started from when I was a kid.
Wow.
And it never left me. And I just always worshiped God, and I always feel that God was there for me. He had plans for my life, and it started very young, so it's part of my life. It's
ingrained in you.
And it's there. And sometimes, I mean, I have conversations with him. With God, he must just roll his eyes. I don't know. But anyway, and I always say one time I was working on something and I was having difficulty. Then it finally came, and I said, God, you're too much. You really gave me the answer today. So I said, I'm joking. I say that to him. So if anybody's listening to me, they say something's wrong with her. But no, I just feel this closeness. I have that closeness with him. Yeah. And I have absolutely no regrets for it. It gives me the strength and the courage to keep moving forward.
It's
and that's how I feel. It is a firm foundation. And
especially with COVID and all that we're going through right now, the last couple of years.
Absolutely. There's no question about that. And I still ask God, I say, why? What is the message here? This type of thing. And, and sometimes I say, I apologize to God too. I would say, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I please forgive me. And, this type of thing I say, because you have your faith and your love, but you're not perfect. Okay. We're not perfect. God is the perfect person. But you do your best to be perfect and not to be offensive to God in any way. And that's what I try to do.
That's good. That's good. Another question. If not the Queen representative, what was your other career goals would be? What other thing would you have wanted to do with your life?
Well, when you look at all of my backgrounds of many things that I did, it was all based on, a lot of it was leadership. And I always look at every single thing that I've done. Everything was based on the other. They're all helpful. Like somebody said, but you were an X-ray technologist. How does that fit? I said, it fits wonderful because being an X-ray technologist gave you the respect for people, the confidence for people, the respect for the medical situation. Right. So it gave you that respect right there and the knowledge. And quite frank, I think if it had to have my life all over again, I might have ended up in science.
Right on.
I might have ended up in science, and maybe if there's another aspect of my life, it might have been science and being a politician. I don't know that. I did say to somebody one time, maybe I would have been the premier or prime minister. Who knows, right? But this is where many of the things that I think about or thought about, that's a possibility. So in terms of what my life has been now, a lot of it's been based on leadership. And a lot of it's been based on bringing about change and courage and inspiration, inspiring people. And has it been easy? The answer is no. It has not been easy. But I really do believe that when God's choice for me to be lieutenant governor and to work on areas of leadership, he had a reason for that. Mm-hmm. And that's what I listen to now in my head and do my best to do that. And that was one of the main reasons why I wrote my book. Write the book, and hopefully that the book will be inspiration to people. And I remember this lady said to me yesterday that she was reading the children's book, she reads the children's book to her granddaughter, about 3 times, and the little girl keeps saying again, because the focus on losing the purse, right, stays with some kids, and I'll always remember the beautiful green purse that I lost. Anyway, yeah. Okay.
Well, I'm not a purse maker, but I would have made you one. I want to personally thank you on the air for your service, for being a representative, for being a mentor, for being a little brown woman that we little brown girls can look up to and know that we can achieve and aspire to those heights and levels in office, in leadership, in anything. For me, you were one of the first that I called for encouragement, if not anything else, just for encouragement and to say, you know, I had a conversation with somebody who knows, somebody who understands, and somebody who can be real and honest and very candid with me. So I want to thank you on behalf of our communities for your service.
Thank you very much. And I thank all of you as well. And I think people look at me and laugh when I say, you know, I love listening to the next generation. When young people talk to me, I ask them questions and say, I never thought of that. And we have a conversation because their life is going to be different. It might be different, right? And when I say different, I think, like, I mean, I know there's always environmental issues going all the way back to, you know, when I was especially growing up in Whitney Pier with the steel plant and the pollution and everything. It's always there, you know what I'm saying? And so there's always that, but to hear their view of things and look at, I love listening to them and having that conversation with them. You know, my position is always about encouraging them. I never tell them what to do. I don't think that's appropriate. I might suggest and say, what do you think? And if they give me, I think that's important. I think that's important because they are important, right? And so I love chatting with young people. I really do.
It's a respectful conversation.
Well, I learn from them too.
Absolutely.
And they say they're learning from me, and I'm saying I'm learning from you too. So,
well, the thing that I adore about you is this fact is that you are very hands-on. You never put distance between us and the community. You show up to events that you're invited to, and that, honestly, that says a lot for someone to show up for you, for someone to take a moment to do that. And it's not just your duty, but you come and you bingo safely, you know, like I've seen you at several events and said, wow, like she showed up for that. You know, it's one thing for me, but to see you at other events in the community. So thank you. Hats off to you. Wish you were able to still serve. So we're going to go and...
You can still invite me.
I know, I will. We're going to take a quick little commercial break and we'll be right back. So again, go refresh your tea, your coffee, your hot cocoa, and we'll see you in a minute.
My name's Joe Kwame. You can join me every Saturday evening at 10 o'clock Atlantic Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time in my program, All Classic Rock and Blues. That's right, ACRB, an hour of good house rock and blues music. Join me here on 97.5 CIOE FM, the home of East Coast music.
Every time I'm walking on down the street.
And we're back. And I have a question, a burning question that I've always wanted to ask Dr. Mayann Francis. This would have been in your time in office, if I can put it that way. And to me, it just stood with me, and I don't know how you feel about it, but you've never had the pleasure of living or serving in the government house. Why is that? Because what I read was due to renovations. It's a long time renovating a house. And I think you're most deserving of being in that house. So can you share anything about that?
It's a very interesting question, and my memoir talks about it, but now that you've asked me, we'll chat about it a little bit here. Now, I did live in Government House, but only for 2 years. The length of time to be Lieutenant Governor is 5 years, and I was 5.5 years, so it was only 2 years. When I was named Lieutenant Governor, I was told that the house would be under renovations, and it would be completed within 1.5 years or so. So I said, okay, I can live with that. If it's going to be renovated and so forth, it will be, you know, for the positive, and everything will be great, and I'll be back in there in time. In any event, to make the long story short, I didn't get in there within 1 year. It was I had to live in my condo for 3 years. I love my condo, but it was not a place to live when you're lieutenant governor.
Right.
In any event, it was a very challenging time not living in Government House. Because when you live in government house as the lieutenant governor, you have your own office, the machines are there, your staff is there, everything's there. But when you're living in your condo, they had to find a place where I was going to be working or when the staff were going to be working, and you have to look at a place where we're going to invite guests, where we're going to have things that we usually have in terms of recognizing members of the public or the community.
Yes.
So it was extremely a challenging time, and my book goes into great detail. I couldn't fully understand when people are doing renovations, and then there's unexpected things that come up when you're doing renovations. However, my belief is that if you wanted the place done within a year or so, it would have been a 24/7 event of working on it. And the office where they placed us was right next door to Government House at the Maritime Center. And so I would always look out the window and say, no one's working today, or they didn't appear to be working today. And there were other comments that I heard in terms of wanting to keep me out of Government House. But in any event, my book goes into more details about that. And it was very, very disturbing. However, I made sure that I was not going to demonstrate how disturbing I felt while lieutenant governor, because I think they probably would have made me look bad, and that would have meant there will not be a number 2, there will not be a number 3, there will not be a number 4 black person ever again, because we tried it and she just did not understand about the renovations, and she was being very selfish. That is my analysis of it. And my book talks about that. I don't name people, although I've kept emails and things like that hidden away. But it was a very disturbing time. And even thinking about it now, it truly does bother me. However, because I had so many plans, I had a lot of plans if I was in there for the 5 years. And it would have been positive plans, not just for our community, but for all of Nova Scotia. One of the things that I made clear is that I wanted to spend a lot of time visiting rural areas, because not everybody in rural areas, will be able to come to Halifax and so forth. So I did spend a lot of time in rural areas my very first time going into some of the areas, and I'm sure it was their first time of having, oh my gosh, she's black, we're having her. But it was always such a great time to go to these rural areas, and I always felt like I was the queen myself, because it was so wonderful.
Welcoming.
So they gave me the hope of feeling great. And, then going back home, going in my condo by myself and feeling down in the dump. It was a horrible feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, it was my belief in God that kept me going.
I hear that, and I felt that, when I was reading this, and I'm like, wow, like I can only imagine, right? But the thing that I compare it to, the level that I compare it to, is when Barack Obama was going into office, right? Like here's a time to celebrate and honor, a life-changing event for everybody, not just for the black community, and you have those powers that be plotting against. And I think that's very a sad state of affair to be in, when you have a body of people who want to celebrate and other people who want to keep tearing down. So for me, the Honorable Dr. Mayann Francis is not a title, it's your character. And you did an exceptionally well holding your head up and walking through, and we'll always see you that way.
I don't know if you're aware, but the current Vice President of the United States, the black woman, first black woman, and there's also special residence for them, and that resident was undergoing renovations when, of course, when she was sworn in and everything, and she complained about it. I think maybe about 4 months, 6 months afterwards. Anyway, it was all taken care of, and she was in. She was not out for a long period of time. And people reached out to me and they said, "Did you hear?"
Right on.
And they said, "Look how quickly they finished it and everything else, you know." And I said, "Yes, I'm aware of that." And I sort of was thinking about her too, and you know. But anyway, she wasn't out a long period of time. She certainly wasn't out 3 years of it. I don't think that would have lasted over here if she did. But when I think about that, when I reflect about it now, it still does bother me. However, what gives me more positive, trying to ignore that, is the people. The people they gave me the encouragement and the hope and the love, and also God. Yeah. So that keeps me from having very difficult psychological thing about that. Absolutely. Because at the time it did, but if it wasn't for God, people would have said, "There's something wrong with her," you know. But it was my faith in God that kept me going through, and my cat Angel.
Miss Angel. I met Angel. She reminded me of the Royale kid.
Oh, she was. Yeah, that's what kept me going. Yeah,
well, you know what? There's a saying that says, "Whatever the enemy meant for evil, God will always turn around for good." So it doesn't even matter what plans they had. You still succeeded and came out on the other end of that. Yeah. So kudos to you, and thanks for being an honorable woman.
Thank you.
Let me jump into your children's book. Because I remember being at one of your book signings, and you took a minute you read it. I think you read a chapter or a segment of the chapter, and then you also took time to talk with people, sign books and all this stuff, and you seem like you were in your glory. So tell us about your children's book. Like, what inspired that?
Yeah. Well, you know, I never thought I would be writing a children's book or writing a memoir either, right? But the children's book, I'll tell you how that idea came to me. Clary Croft, who is an author himself, and he and his wife, in fact, how I got to know them is that I received $6,000 a month for not living in Government House. Okay, you must have heard the public went kind of upset about that too. But that $6,000 was meant that I had to hire somebody to cook food for me, and all that type of stuff, and cleaning, the whole 9 yards. But in any event, that's how I knew both of them. And so one day we were walking down by the train station, and I started talking about, I just loved going on a train, because when we were kids, every second summer we would travel by train to the United States, and I would talk about having fun, what it was like being on the train with my parents and my sister, and getting on there and meeting all these porters who were black, and then we would stop off in Montreal overnight, and not necessarily overnight, for a long day, and then take the train again and get on to New York City. And so after I finished telling the story and told but one time I lost my beautiful purse, and so he was quiet. He said, you really should write a story about this. And I said, I don't think so. And he said, no. He said, this will make a great children's story.
Right on.
And I said, I have to think about that. He said, no. He said, so anyway, when he said that, I didn't think about it again. And then finally he asked me some more questions later on. Then he introduced me to publisher at Nimbus and so forth, and the person said, the man who has the time, he said, I think you should write about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did reach out to another person who was an illustrator and asked her opinion of it and so forth. And she said, yeah, I think you should. It's a good story. To make a long story short, that's where it all came from.
Right on.
So anyway, I'm very pleased that I wrote that story, and I was extremely happy then when it was out in 2015. In 2018, it was written in French. They turned it into French, which I was so happy about that as well. But the story also had its interest in many areas, because the focus was grew up in Whitney Pier. Okay, where's Whitney Pier? So that gave people the thing, we got to look into that, right? And then to see about the train station and getting on the train with black porters.
Right on.
That's another story about the life of porters. That's all there. And the cab driver who always took us to various places was an entrepreneur. He was from Barbados.
Oh,
and
wow.
So, Mr. Murray was his name. And then stopping off in Montreal and spending the day there talking about the people in Montreal who are our next door neighbors. and then catching the train again and going off and landing in New York City with my uncle at the airport, and then going to Brooklyn to meet with the family and spend time there. And then are going into museums and tours, and then getting off the subway, and that's when my purse got lost. And
you went all that way to lose the purse.
And lost my purse, and was so down and crying about it and feeling very depressed. And it was, my father was scheduled to speak at the African Orthodox Church in New York City at the time. And the people at the church, when they found out what was lost, they gave my sister a gift because she liked jewelry, because we were going into Macy's and those places. And then they gave me my gift, which was a new purse.
Was it green?
Yeah, it was green. I think it was green. I can't remember the color of it now, but the bottom line is my purse was green, and that's the one that's lost. But it was really a great story, because what it did do then, the lesson in that is about the kindness of people, and people who cares, and people who love you, and your family loves you, and everything else. So it was really very good, and they gave us dolls, and they were black dolls, and that was like, oh my gosh, that was black doll, yeah, so my parents bought that, so it was really a good experience. So that was the story about Mayann's train ride, and it was a positive story. The ending was positive, right? And I remember about several years ago, this lady was telling me that her little girl liked a book, and when she found out about me, she said, "Can you ask her if I can give her anything to make her happy?" And I said, "You tell her thank you, but I'm okay."
Yes, I know.
It's an old woman. I'm all right now.
I could buy many purses now. So on that note, thank you. We're going to come back after commercial break, and I have one important question after that, but we'll be right back, okay?
It's 7:40.
I'm Corey Eisner. You're listening to CIOE 97.5 FM, the home of East Coast music.
Hello, my name is Tavon from Blacktop Paving. We're a Halifax-based paving contractor that provides complete commercial and residential paving services for asphalt and concrete, replacement and repair through all of HRM.
For all your paving needs, you want the best. So call Blacktop Asphalt Paving Limited today at 902-402-5950 or send an email to info@blacktopasphaltpaving.ca.
And we're back, and it's our last segment, and I have so much more to talk about. But anyway, so we'll get there. Okay, I wanted to say to you, did you watch that show Porter yet on CBC?
You know what? I haven't, and somebody mentioned this to me before, and I said, well, when is it on? I'm not always on the television. Right. But I am going to start looking it up and watching it.
Oh, watch it.
Because I just loved the Porters as a child, and they were always so friendly to Isabel and I, my sister, and my father was close to them, and they loved when we came on, because we were always the only black family that would come on, and they would be, we would be staying in a place where we would be sleeping on the train station and so forth. And my father, they had the highest respect for him as a pastor, and he was he was close to Dr. Carrie Bess's husband, who was a porter. And I hope
from New Glasgow,
from New Glasgow, yes, and yes. I really do, but I think he might have been originally from the Caribbean. I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I really do hope that the program also recognizes that many porters are also from Truro, New Glasgow, and that is important. They were, they might have been from other areas of Nova Scotia, but I do know Truro,
for sure,
because whenever we would get on the train, there were always the guys there from Truro, and as a kid you'd be looking at them and they would just be so happy for you and everything.
And debonair in their uniforms.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So yes, and you know that Dr. Cecil Foster has written a book about the porters.
I have to look
That's
that one
a
up.
very important situation, because what the porters went through, but they were always so dignified,
right,
and well
absolutely.
dressed,
and so it's depicted in the series. Absolutely,
they're just amazing. I don't know how I missed that. Somebody else asked me that the other day.
It's still they're still running, so you can definitely watch it. I'm enjoying it. It's a great story. Whoever came up with this show did an amazing job telling the stories, because it talks about their everyday life, their struggle for the unions, their backstory, and great characters. Absolutely great characters.
Get a hold of Dr. Cecil Foster's book.
Okay, I certainly would do that.
Very good.
Okay, so before we run out of time, I just want to ask you these final questions, and more so around where we are today. So how would you express your thoughts regarding women in Nova Scotia in 2022? Words of encouragement to our listening audience, the young people, Black women in politics, the Black community. I'm throwing a lot at you because there's so much going on, especially with all the tragedy and the losses and the sorrow and the suffering that people have been going through week after week in the community. So any final words and thoughts? I know it's a big question.
It's a very important question, and it's a very challenging question as well. 2022, there's no question about it. We are in extremely challenging time.
Yes,
and we've been in extremely challenging time for the last couple of years as a result of COVID and many other things that are happening in the world. But COVID, number one, I would say. And what's so interesting about what has happened as a result of COVID, we've not only had many losses, people that you love who've died, they're dead, or people who have not only suffered mental situations as a result of it, but also mental situations because of COVID. And COVID has also opened the door to racist behavior and sexist behavior and abuse of abuse of women in marital situations and so forth. So it has opened that door, which a lot of these issues were always there, but COVID just said, okay, here it is now. We're going to expose it even more, and that's what's happened. And in terms of one of your questions, like what would I have to say to women, and now in 2022, especially when we're going forward, my comment is there is no more normal. It's a new normal. And the question that you have to look at is, how are we going to do the new normal? You have to be recognizing about racism and sexism. And also, there are other ways of and you have to also be looking at how have we been experiencing people who have experienced everything I've just mentioned, plus mental situations. Okay? Yeah. So there are so many things, and also our environmental issues. All of these things are there. They're up front. They're in our face now. And I do believe, and what I would want to encourage people, especially women, you still are strong.
Yes, amen.
You still have courage. Do not give in to that. And reach out to people that you know also are people of power and who truly care, okay? Because when you think about people who have become homeless as a result of the COVID, people who are, who are treated a certain way because of their gender, because of their orientation, because of their color of their skin. Right. There's just so much. Even disabled people are going through a lot of challenges, right? We've always been going through those challenges of observing people who are disabled and lists of things that I've just mentioned, but COVID brought it way up front. So our challenge is, what are we going to do to
keep it better,
move forward, right? With new ideas, new normals, because if people sit back and say, "Oh, it's not really a fit," of course it has. So you need to be honest about it, because I see it myself. Because a lot of it has been staying, I guess, by yourself in many ways, right? And thank heavens that we had Zoom possibilities and everything like that. But can I say that I felt extremely happy and great? No. I was used to being around people and talking to people, right? And so, you have to either get yourself chatting with psychologists if you feel, and that's another thing too. Are we
the
low level?
stigma?
So, it's all there. But I tell people, do not be discouraged.
That's right.
Okay? Try your best to keep your encouragement by talking to people who can keep moving forward. And the COVID has also demonstrated the effect on economy. It's been a big thing, right? A lot of people lost their jobs. There's so many challenges, but
prices have gone up.
Absolutely.
And affordability for just the average
very
family.
Very true. And I saw that too. So there's so many challenges that are there, and for young people too, And there's always the challenge of people who say, well, I'm not going to get any vaccines. I don't believe in all of this, right? So that's I'm not condemning them, but that's their belief.
Right.
But the point is, then we have to start looking, how are we going to manage this? Because we don't want the spread of this. And all of the things that we see happening has always been there, but people haven't been paying attention to it. And when you look at the people who are homeless and putting up tents different places, it's so sad to see, especially with winter time and storminess, and it's a challenge. And that challenge is going to be there for quite some time. It's going to be there for quite some time, but that does not mean that we shouldn't be fighting it.
Right on.
And coming up with
solutions,
ideas to bring us to and that's going to give people peace and joy and contentment. And it's a big challenge.
And the sense of family again, because, I grew up in a village, you grew up in a village, and that's what we always done. But I think, and I don't know how you feel about it, but the human connection piece, like COVID kind of tried to threaten that, right? And I understand for safety reasons, obviously, but a lot of people don't know how to handle that and feel isolated and unloved. And I go back to the seniors who I've talked to, that they don't feel that they matter or looked after, or no one's checking in on them anymore. And just not for the seniors, but for anybody, because we don't know where people are in their headspace, let alone in their physical space. And, I think we had a conversation about how, anything, and when we look at COVID, was this to push us closer? To calling out to God? Like, those are the kind of questions that come up in conversations that I have. Is this an eye-opener? And for those who don't view life that way, then what is it for you?
When you mentioned the word seniors, and I think that's a big question to look at. Look what COVID has done to seniors and bringing to the attention of how seniors have been treated. When you look at seniors in senior homes, was staffing was always a problem. Okay. In terms of the type of homes they lived in was always a problem. How can they afford to be in those truly very expensive homes that many people can't afford to be in? What was the status of that compared to the status of those homes that were there for people who could afford to live in homes? And that's not just with COVID. That's been going on for umpteen years.
Yes.
But COVID brought it to the attention, and that's a very frightening situation. And that is something that requires a top priority, as well as our medical field as well, because I'm not going into details about my experience of discrimination when I was in the hospital several years ago. But the point is that there's a lot of questions that have to be asked and dealt with in terms of how our system, especially dealing with health, whether it's physical health, mental health, how it deals with seniors, how it deals with people of color. All of these are major questions, and even kids as well. So there's a lot of priorities that we have to be looking at. And you'll say, well, what's number one priority? They're all number one as far as I'm concerned,
Exactly.
And there just needs expertise, and people have to have a heart and feeling and understanding of this. And I said to somebody one time, I wish I was a multi-billionaire. I know what I would do with that money. Anyway. Yeah.
So one of the questions, and we didn't get into it, but The Honorable Life by Dr. Mayann Francis. Tell us about that book. because I know that's your second book, right? Am I right?
Second. Well, first adult book.
Right.
Second, yeah.
Right. But there's so much in that. There's so much of you in that. The pages speak volume up to your life history, your life experiences. It's a good read.
Well, thank you very much. And people say, well, why did you decide to write the book? And I guess there's several reasons, I suppose, that I did say, well, let me write my story. And I'm glad I did, because it allowed me to express and to feel better mentally,
yes.
For the experience I had, which were negative experiences of being the first or being hired someplace, right? And so all of those things I sort of put away, because I said, no, I got to make sure that I'm a perfect employee. I got to make sure I'm perfect, because I want somebody else coming after me, right? But so, and I always said to God, help me get through this, I want to be the top person, I want to do this, and so forth. And that's all important. So writing the book was hoping it would be a book of inspiration, and also hoping that it would be a book of people who want to deny that racism or systemic racism exists will take a good look at the book and say, you know what, I need to ask myself about who and what is systemic discrimination, what is white privilege, what is, microaggression and things like that. Mm-hmm. And so that's what the book is for. And the book is, for me, it's about hope and help and love and forgiveness and moving forward. That's why the book is written. And when I mentioned to you earlier, I said I would love to sit back and do another write again. It would be similar to that. But anyway, I was hoping that that's what it would be. And I am also very happy when people want to talk to me about it. And this is it, because that is my life. I was a very successful person. And I'm very happy about that. Mm-hmm. Was it a challenge? Absolutely. But that's what I want to encourage you about. That, even today, you're still going to face many of the things that I faced.
Amen. Well, guess what? You're invited to come back and we can talk all about the book. And we can do that. We can do that. I would love that. So sure. We're going to, unfortunately, wrap up this segment and our time with you. But you're always welcome here to have a seat at the table.
You.
And thank you so much for your time. And, I just want to encourage those who are listening. This is also a place for you to share your points of view, your thoughts and expressions, whatever you're going through. We want to hear from you. We do care. Thank you for listening. And this was a great show today. Thank you for being on the show, Dr. Francis.
Well, thank you for the invitation to be here. Lots to talk about. Thank you.
And again, you're always invited. You're listening to A Seat at the Table. I'm your host, Nicole Johnson. You're listening to 97.5, your community radio.
Oh, honey, we're about to get very busy up in here.